You've said it out loud before, probably with a small laugh, so it lands lighter than it feels. I'm just bad with money. You've said it to a friend at dinner, maybe to a partner during a conversation that got quiet, maybe just to yourself, in the car, after checking your account and immediately wishing you hadn't. And you meant it. That's the part that matters. You weren't making an excuse. You actually believe it. You think there's something in you, some missing wiring that other people got and you didn't. I need you to sit with a question for a second. When exactly were you supposed to have learned it? Think back, genuinely, go through it. 12 years of school. You learned the parts of a cell. You learned what a rhombus is. You learned the dates of wars that ended before your grandparents were born. Somewhere in there, you were taught how to write a formal letter for a world that would stop sending them before you turned 30. At no point did anyone sit you down and explain what interest actually does to a balance over time. Nobody explained what a credit score was, or how it's built, or that it was already being built while you weren't looking. Nobody explained the difference between something that pays you and something that costs you. Nobody explained what happens to money that just sits still. You were tested on the rhombus. You were never tested on the thing you'd use every single day for the next 60 years. And then at 18, someone handed you a form for a loan, and everyone acted like you had the tools to evaluate it. You didn't. Nobody gave them to you, and then when it went badly, the conclusion everyone reached, including you, was that something must be wrong with you. Warm, quick, don't break the tone. One quick thing, because the next part is where this actually gets unfair. If you've ever felt stupid about money, this channel exists for exactly that feeling. Money Lens. Hit subscribe and stay to the end. The last minute is the part I actually need you to hear. So the question becomes, okay, if not school, then home. Here's what you learned about money at home. Nothing was ever explained, but everything was communicated. You learned it in the sound your parents' voices made in the other room when they thought you were asleep. You learned it from a certain kind of silence after the mail arrived. You learned which weeks of the month you didn't ask for things. Nobody ever told you that rule. You just absorbed it, the way you absorb weather. That's not education, that's atmosphere. And you didn't learn how money works. You learned how money feels. You learned that it's tense, that it's a thing you don't talk about at the table, that it's dangerous to look at directly. So of course you don't check your account when you're stressed. Of course you avoid the statement. You were trained, for 18 years, that looking at money too closely is what happens right before something bad. That's not a character flaw. That's a completely reasonable response to what you were shown. And your parents weren't hiding it from you on purpose. Nobody taught them either. They were doing their best with a set of instincts they also inherited from someone who was never taught. It's been passed down like that for generations. Not knowledge, just tension. You can't hand down a thing you were never given. Now here's the part that actually makes me angry. There's an entire industry built on you believing this about yourself. Because a person who thinks they're bad with money doesn't ask questions, they just sign. They assume the confusion is their own fault, that everyone else in the room understood the paperwork and they were the only one pretending. They don't ask what that fee is for. They don't ask why the rate is what it is. They don't ask what happens in year 2. Because asking would expose the thing they're most ashamed of, that they don't already know. Your shame is genuinely profitable. That's not a conspiracy. Nobody's in a room planning it. It's simpler than that. It's just that a confused customer who blames himself is the easiest customer there is, and no industry has ever gone out of its way to fix a thing that's working for it. The confusion isn't a bug you're failing to overcome. For a lot of what you sign, it's just the product. So let's look at the actual evidence about you. You can run a household. You can hold a job. You have kept yourself alive and housed through months where the math genuinely did not work, and you figured it out anyway, quietly, without anyone noticing. That's not somebody who's bad with money. That's somebody doing a genuinely hard job with no training, no manual, and no one to ask, and getting judged for the parts they got wrong. If somebody handed you a car with no lessons and no license, and you scraped it, the problem was never your driving. Here's what I want you to actually take from this. You don't have to be good with money yet. That's not the ask. The ask is smaller, and it's this. Stop calling yourself bad at something you were never taught. Because that sentence isn't harmless. It sounds like honesty, It sounds like humility even. But every time you say it, it does a specific job. It closes the door. Because if you're just bad at it, then it's fixed, it's who you are, and there's nothing to learn. The sentence protects you from trying. The truth is less comfortable, but a lot more useful. You have a knowledge gap. That's all. And gaps close, traits don't. You are allowed to learn this at 30, at 40, at 55. There is no age at which it becomes too embarrassing to finally be taught the thing nobody bothered to teach you. And you should know. Almost everyone around you is faking this. The confident guy at work who talks about his portfolio. The friend who says, "Oh, you should really be in index funds," like it's obvious. Ask any of them one layer deeper and watch what happens. Most of them are repeating something they heard. The confidence isn't knowledge. It's just a different way of hiding the same gap you have. You're not behind them, you're just the only one being honest about where you're standing. So the next time it's about to come out of your mouth, at dinner, in the car, to yourself, try catching it. You're not bad with money. You were handed a thing that runs your entire life, with no instructions, by people who never got instructions either, and then you were blamed for the parts you got wrong. That's not a flaw in you. That's just where the story starts. This is Money Lens. We show you what the money world doesn't say out loud.